kids are getting pretty wild in there, man. Is that safe?
Yeah, they're fine. I've got their keys.
We're going to go ahead and get started, everybody. We're going to start off where we left off yesterday, talking about the Americans before the sea.
Hey, have a beer, man. You deserve it.
It's not worth it. Underage drinking risks everything you're working for.
Welcome to the Safe Streets Coalition meeting today. My name's Chris Schultz. I'll be your host here. And before we get started, I want to go off the script real fast because it's been a pretty trying time here for our community. And I think it's incredibly trying for our law enforcement officers. So to start this off, if you are not a law enforcement officer, I think we should give these guys a standing ovation from the beginning. Stand up, let's do it. Thank you for all that you do. All right, so welcome to the Safe Streets Coalition meeting as we're here to make Topeka and Shawnee County the safest capital community in the country. Please be sure to sign in on the yellow sheets on your table. And we have, looks like we have some guests here. Do we have some guests here with us today? Raise your hands if you're a guest. We want to get to know who you are. We got some guests back here. You guys are with our champion, right? Oh, we'll get to know you guys pretty shortly here. We've got a guest back here. What's your name? AJ, what are you with?
Capital Federal Savings.
All right, well, welcome. Thank you for coming, AJ. Where are other guests at? Got some more guests in here. They're all hiding from me here. Christy's just pointing over here. She's saying we got some guests right here, right? You've got guests here?
What was the question?
What's your name?
Oh, Rich.
Where do you work?
Shawnee County Department of Corrections.
All right, well, it's great to have you guys here. Thank you so much. Give a nice round of applause for our guests here today. Now, if you're interested in becoming a member of the coalition, all you have to do, it's real easy. It's free. Just sign up with Judy. She's right out in the back here. There she is right in the back. So we'd love to have you join up. You can get emails and get updates about everything that we do here. All right. Next, I'd like to introduce Trey George, the chair of Safe Streets here, to give us the tip of the month. He loves that applause, though. He's going to...
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. The tip of the month this month is optimism. Sorry, thank you. And for me, whenever I think about optimism, to me it really relates down to positivity. My wife will often accuse me of being positive Penelope instead of negative Nancy, which I enjoy that. In my opinion, it is much more enjoyable to be positive, to be optimistic, and I think that is very infectious. I think if you have that type of an attitude and you go out and everybody that you come in contact with, you share that positivity and that optimism, it goes a long way, and it, as I said, it is infectious. So thank you all very much, and I will turn it back over to Chris, who also loves applause. Yeah.
Thank you, Trey. All right, every month we like to celebrate people who go above and beyond the call to be heroes in our community. So at this time, we would like to introduce Cindy Patton from the Character Council to present our champion of character. And if you're a member of that Character Council, would you please join us up here in the front? Cindy loves applause too. We better do that.
Thanks. I'd like Team Blake to come forward. Anybody that's part of Team Blake, come on forward. I'd like you all to come up here. We have a special award today. We're recognizing Team Blake. They turned a huge tragedy in their family into a positive thing for the community. They were nominated for this award, and I believe we have Sheriff Jones here to make the presentation.
Thank you very much. It's good to see everybody out here.
Gosh, I got to say, where's Schultz? Where'd he go? Anyway, thank you for recognizing law enforcement officers. Many times we look at the officers to be those that stand up to courage in our communities, but today we're talking about courage that stems to one of our little ones in our community right here when we talk about Team Blake. And for that, we recognize that. We recognize you for today being the recipients of the Kansas Character Recognition Council of Topeka, Shawnee County, which we have a recognition that states that we recognize Team Blake as the strength of our nation is dependent upon the health and safety of its communities. The strength of our community is dependent upon the character of its citizens. We, the Character Council of Kansas, in conjunction with the Topeka City of Character and Safe Streets Coalition of Topeka and Shawnee County, recognize Team Blake, Jacqueline, and Chris Kaiser. Blake Kaiser was diagnosed with acute monoblastic leukemia in December of 2015, and shortly thereafter, his mother, Jacqueline, began sharing the Team Blake story. Through his mom's posts, this sweet little boy touched the hearts of people from around the world as they began following his journey. The community Blake brought together is nothing less than a miracle, a display of love, support, and faith. The continuing support through the fundraisers will benefit local charities such as the Ronald McDonald House and will keep the spirit of Team Blake and the community alive. And from this, your actions demonstrate optimism, courage, and faith, which makes Team Blake the champion of character. Let's give him a hand, please.
All right, I'm going to try to get through this, sorry. First off, we wouldn't have received this if it wasn't for Blake. He showed courage, strength, and bravery during his 15-month battle with cancer, and he was only 2 years old. And second off, we couldn't also receive this if it wasn't for the amazing community that has came together because of our son. We are still having people reach out to us, telling us how Blake has changed their life and touched them and what they can do to help anybody. And it's those kind of posts or comments that we get that keep us going. So thank you so much.
Let's have another round of applause for Team Blake. All right, and now we got a little business to do. So we would like to get a motion to approve the minutes from last month, if we could get one of those from the floor. Do we have a second? We have a second. All in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, the minutes are approved. And now please welcome Christy Pankratz for a little staff update from Safe Streets here. With your applause, of course. Yeah.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. And I'd like to echo Chris's sentiments with thanking law enforcement for everything that you guys do. This has been kind of a little bit of a busy couple weeks for you, and I know that you're hearing concerns expressed within the community as well, as we are too. And I think what it comes back to is both the optimism, which is the word of the month, as well as the golden rule, doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. I think that becomes incredibly important right now, and the more you can get involved and engaged in your community, I think now is the time. And I would encourage and challenge anyone to go ahead and start that neighborhood group, start that conversation with your neighbors. When we work together, when we work with our law enforcement partners, our social service partners, that's when we can make an impact in our community and really challenge anyone. If you're thinking about doing a neighborhood watch, just thinking about it, give us a call. We will talk you into it, but just give us a call. Make that plea. We've actually started seeing more of an increase in neighborhoods wanting to do those in the last week, which I hate to see that be the reason why, but I'm very encouraged that people are wanting to take action. So just really, really encourage people that if you want to make that difference, if you want to do something, start with your neighborhood. That's where it is. So I'll get off my little spiel here and go into what we have coming up. National Night Out, we are having our second planning meeting next Tuesday. Again, this is August 5th. It's a once-a-year event, but really what it does is it's kind of like a huge block party throughout Shawnee County. We have about 65 neighborhoods currently registered to participate. Our goal is 80, and we really encourage you, again, consider doing it. There are a lot of different incentives, a lot of different things that will help you host your event. And businesses, if you'd like to also participate in a certain way, please see us. We're happy to have business partners come on board with this too. We have a meeting coming up for loss prevention officers. This is a great discussion among what's going on, what trends we're seeing. We have a substance abuse task force. At last month's meeting, Lynn Smith from the Prevention and Recovery Services arm did a presentation on drug trends. So that's kind of what we look at as well too. And we also have an addiction A to Z training coming up as well. So that's kind of what we're doing right now. We're getting really inundated with neighborhood watches, which is good. That's what we want to be. So really just, if I can't stress that enough from this meeting, that's really what I want you guys to have a takeaway from. So that's kind of just a brief overview of what Safe Streets has been up to. I will turn this back over to Chris.
All right, and now we're going to start some of our partner updates. So please welcome Alice Weingarten from Grace Med, who loves that applause, I guarantee you. And you do the curtsy well. I won't do that.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys giving me a few minutes just to talk about what's happened with our safety net primary care clinics here in Topeka. Grace Med assumed the operations of the Shawnee County Health Agency Community Health Center in July. It's hard to believe that we're kind of working towards our first year of this transition happening. But basically, what I wanted to say is that with the services that we currently have, which are really focused on primary care, both at our Capital Family Clinic at 8th and Garfield and the clinic on California, the Highland Park Clinic, we are going to grow from there. We recently purchased the Dillons at Huntoon Lane, and so our hope is to be in that building, hopefully by fall of 2018. With that location, it'll become our new hub location, and it will replace the 8th and Garfield Clinic. And we'll be able to have more access to primary care, but also add dental, vision, on-site pharmacy, and then reintegrate behavioral health with those services. Where I want to partner with you all is to make sure that you know that we're here as a resource. And if you see folks in the community or learn of folks in the community who don't have a primary care home, Grace Med wants to be that place. We want to help folks understand that it's much more cost-effective to come to your primary care provider than it is to go to the emergency room. And we want to make those connections with folks as best we can. So I did bring some brochures. If anybody wants to talk further or learn more, I'll be here for a few minutes, and I would be glad to visit and come out to your groups that you work with if you want to get your staff informed of how Grace Med operates and what we can do to help support the health of our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Alice. And now please welcome our friends from the Topeka Police Department, Sergeant Dan Wilson, who loves applause, and he's packing heat, so it better be a good one.
Thank you. First off, we'll talk about our city violent crime stats. As you can see, a lot of those are up. A couple things we'll touch on that is on a lot of those, victims and suspects know each other. And also, we've started a new initiative to address that. So we see the numbers too. We're working on it. It's a work in progress. On the bright side, our property crimes are all lower. We've been really focused on those with the auto thefts, car burglaries. We just put out a code red to remind everybody about the car burglary problem, especially this time of year. And as you can see, a lot of those numbers are trending downward, so that's a good sign. Our slides, our community slides, we had a tip-a-cop for Special Olympics fundraiser at Red Robin this last week. Unfortunately, a lot of us were busy, so we're not able to attend. However, a few of us did make it. It's always good to get out there with our partner with Special Olympics. We served dinner last month at the rescue mission, served over 250 people. It was interesting just being able to actually, instead of just being in there and being in the front office, actually being in there and talking to the people, sitting down and getting to know them on a different level. You can mark your calendars, May 19th, we're gonna have a coffee with a cop at Dunkin' Donuts on 21st Street from 9 to 11. Come out and see all your community officers. And then finally, if you've got young children that are interested, going into 6th or 7th grade, our SROs, which is our school resource officers, will be having a summer camp. The information is on our Facebook page as well as our website, and Sergeant Ekus with the School Resource Officer Program is the contact on that if you're interested in that. That's all I've got.
Thanks, Sergeant Wilson.
I thought I was done. Tonight, Pastor Hicks, T.D. Hicks, if anybody knows him, is having a community prayer vigil at Antioch Baptist Church at 7 o'clock. The community's welcome. Just if you're interested, that's something that's going on.
Very good. Thank you very much. All right, and now we're going to introduce our friends from the Shawnee County Sheriff's Office for our special presentation today. Please make them feel welcome.
Well, I'm Deputy Rod. This is Deputy Trammell. And he didn't want to talk. I've been at the Sheriff's Office for almost 17 years. Trammell's been there for 20. We're in our 15th year. Somebody have a question? We're in our 15th year of doing the criminal interdiction, and that I could sit here and talk to you all day long about what it is that we do. What our basic job is, go out and try to find crime before it happens. We do that generally through car stops. You guys getting feedback? We try to do proactive enforcement by stopping cars. Been doing it for almost 15 years. If you want to start some slides, we can talk about that. 15 years is a long time to do something in law enforcement. We are still doing it. I've foregone getting promoted because I like doing what I do. Trammell the same way. We've done it for a long time. We believe in it. If you look at the majority of your crime around Topeka, and sitting here listening to all the stats, most of your crime, in my belief, is drug-driven. You know, people go break into houses, break into cars. Where do y'all go to work every day? You go there just to hang out with your friends? You go to work to make money, right? So if you're going to go break in cars, houses, you're doing it financially driven. So if you're somebody who doesn't want to go to work every day, 8 to 4 job, drugs are a good way to make some living. We spend more. United States is the biggest consumer of illegal drugs in the world. So whether you guys realize or not, I-70 is a major corridor for narcotics trafficking. We're right in the middle of the country. Kansas City is a big hub. Denver's become like a big staging area for meth and cocaine. You got all the other problems going on with Colorado right now. Our court systems in the whole state are just flooded with medical marijuana, recreational marijuana from Colorado. So that, if you take the marijuana that's coming out of Colorado, what people, I see a lot of different ages in here, but when I was in high school, you had the ditch weed, Kansas weed. Some of you guys who went to high school in the 60s You guys had the same stuff. That percentage of THC in that weed, 4 to 6% THC. The stuff they're producing now, 20 to 22% THC. That's I can't think of the correct term, tetrahydrocannabinol, whatever it is. THC is the drug, is the chemical that's in the weed that gives you the hallucinogenic properties. The next thing that they've come up with in the last 10 years has been the edibles. They're getting that by the plant. In the female plant is where they get the bud. Then when they take out the male plants out of the group of plants. I'm trying to give you a science lesson here, but when they can strain the molecules out of and just harvest the THC, they can get percentages up in the 90s to almost 100% THC. And what we're seeing come across the state are a lot of edibles. You have stuff, anybody seen the kids do the dabbing thing? Probably everybody's seen it on TV. I think somebody did it at an inauguration. But that's all drug references. And what they're doing, they're smoking the butter. Think of a Hershey's candy bar, okay? You could sit down in one sitting and eat a whole Hershey's candy bar, right? Well, they're making THC candy bars, and if the danger in that is a kid getting a hold of it. A kid doesn't know whether or not it's a THC candy bar. He'll eat the whole thing, and like Colorado, they're having problems with young kids getting a hold of that and overdosing on THC. So we're seeing that on the I-70. So your ditch weed that you were seeing 20 years ago, it was selling for $1,000 a pound. The stuff that we're having come across Kansas right now is being sold in Colorado on the black market. They have the legal stuff, but what the problem is, they're having, if there's a way to make easy money, people are going to find a way to do it. So they're going out there, we're getting people, and in the legislature right now, you have a lot of the asset forfeiture money trying to come up, and people are thinking that law enforcement is just stealing that. We're not stealing that, folks. If you're a criminal, that's what you're in business for, is to make money. So they're going out and buying it for $1,500 a pound. The further you get away from where it's legal, the higher it is. You get 10 pounds of weed out of Colorado, $1,500 a pound. You can take it back to St. Louis and even further and sell it for $3,000, $4,000 a pound. Right now, there's a battle across the United States with people saying that marijuana is not bad. It does have some, I don't know anybody that's been a heroin user who hadn't first started out with marijuana. So it's a low risk, high gain deal. And this is what we're seeing. We'll go through some pictures. This was almost 3,000 pounds of weed out of a semi truck. And the guy gave us consent to search the trailer. He thought there was only 500 pounds. They're paying those guys only so much a pound. They're telling them, you got 500 in there, we'll give you $100 a pound to deliver it. This was going to Columbus, Ohio. Go to the next one. Do you remember, this was, remember that one? I think this was in a U-Haul, and they had 3 couches, leather couches, that they had made specifically to haul marijuana. And the people's story was that they were moving from Tucson, Arizona to, I don't remember where it was, somewhere back east. And you get into looking at the stuff in the back, they had went to a garage sale. And they still had stickers on their stuff that was their prized possessions. It was just thrown in on top of each other, and this is what they had hidden inside the couch cushions. I don't know if you guys can tell what that is, but that is a drive shaft out of a Nissan, I think it's a Pathfinder, the big SUV. It was on the vehicle when we stopped it. There were 16 pounds of cocaine inside that drive shaft, and it was going down the road. We find this stuff just stopping the people's behavior. They'll go by us. I've done this long enough. Everybody here, for the most part, has probably dealt with kids or has kids. You know when your kid's done something wrong, right? I know when my kid had done something wrong because their behavior changes. And if you think about it, you're driving down the road, what do you do when you see a police officer? This is 99% of the people look down their speedometer. As most people think, if they're within 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, they're good, right? And people don't even realize they're doing it. They'll come by and look at their speedometer. Oh, or they'll see a cop and they'll hit their brakes. Well, they weren't speeding. Say they were going 74 and a 70. The people that we're getting or seeing the change in behavior, driving behavior, is they're within the law, is they're seeing us and getting a reaction, hitting their brakes, slowing down to 65 miles an hour, changing lanes and getting away from us. That's what catches our attention. So just by talking to people, get up to the car window, start talking to them, these people's stories don't make sense. If you guys go across the country to go on a trip, right, you have a destination you're going. I know where I'm going to go if I go across country. You'll stop some people because they don't know where they're going. They're told to get in a car and drive to Kansas City. And when they get there, call this number and we'll give you further directions. So they really don't know where they're going. And you get in there and start asking them questions, just, hey, where you're getting your license, hey, where you headed to, what you doing, where you going? They don't know the answers. And there's stress. And you could probably heard me when I first started talking, trying to figure out what I'm going to talk about. I had some stress in my voice. You hear that on the roadside. Hey, if I stop you for speeding, everybody has kids or has dealt with kids. If you know, or even yourself, if you know what's going to happen if you get stopped, the officer says, I'm going to give you a warning. Automatically you know, okay, I'm not getting a ticket, because the fear of the unknown is what causes stress. So, hey, we'll address the issue. I stopped you for speeding, give you a warning. Your nervous level should come down, right? Okay, I'm a little bit behind. I can still make this a meeting or whatever I'm going to. Your nervous level should come down. These people's level just stays right up there. So this lady was going down the road with 16 pounds of cocaine in her drive shaft. And this is one of Deputy Trammell's stop. He can tell you about it. I'll make him talk.
Deputy Rod wound up telling you guys all about where it's coming from and why. I'm going to tell you just a little bit more of why we do it and how we do it. Basically, criminal interdiction, and we got a department that supports it because they feel it's a need for the community. A lot of this drug that's being in transition through the highways, some of it's coming to Topeka, some of it's coming to Kansas City, some of it's going to Chicago, but at one point in time, it's just to cut down on it all. Interdiction is no more than making a lot of valid traffic stops. We have to have a valid reason to stop an individual. We use our state laws, whether it's seat belts, fail to maintain, speed, illegal display of tag, cracked windshields, illegal tint. Legislatures make laws, they have to enforce it. Once we get the car stopped, me and Brian's been through a lot of training, we just wind up talking to the people. And it's basic, simple questions like Deputy Rod said. You know, where are you going, where are you coming from? You know, we look at certain avenues. We look if it's a third-party car, if it's a rental. Believe it or not, a lot of these loads is the people that's in the car don't own the car. It's a friend or a family member that gave them the car. That's the story that they're going to tell you, and they're going to let them drive them clear across country. You know, how long they're staying at a place, their nervousness. We use things on our job when we're at the window and talking to them. Sight, smell, stuff like that. Strong deodorizer smells in a car is something that we look on. The smell of Bondo, because they'll put this drugs and stuff in the compartments and hide it and conceal it away from you. Bolts that are scratched, pieces of carpet that is pulled up that we can see when we're there, that's stuff that we're looking for. If we make contact for, say, speed, talk to the individual, they're not really nervous, you're not seeing anything, we cut them a citation or a warning and we send them on their way. If there's more to it or we think there's more to it, then we'll get a little bit deeper. We'll get into more clarifying questions or something to make them, you know, because a lot of times these guys will rehearse these stories. What they're doing is that these loads that are coming through our state, through our county, the most vulnerable they are is in transit. They don't have no control. At the stash houses, they've got them hid in ways that where they're supposed to be. Same way once that it gets where it's going. But on the highway, that's where they're the most vulnerable and that it's easiest for us to get them caught. You know, they'll rehearse stories because they'll have 2 or 3. They'll hire families. One guy might haul the dope and hire a female and her kid to go with them on the trip because they're trying to look like the most innocent public going down the road. So they'll use all kinds of tactics against us. They get extremely sophisticated in their hides. I think this one here was in the side of the car where the dope is laying on the seat. It was meth. It's a two-door car, so when you sit in the back seat, there's just a panel here. Well, where one of the panels are, which is a piece of molding, they busted that off and they put a trunk latch hitch on it that was magnetically to get into, that if you ran a magnetic over a place, it released that trunk latch and that piece of trim just came off. And then the car's got a natural void between the shell of the outside of the car and on the inside. It's just a good place to hide in where to put contraband. As far as contraband, we found contraband in about anywhere, anything that you can think of. I'm talking about drive shafts, coolers, spare tires, motors, batteries, radiators. Now, when I say motor, battery, drive shaft, radiator, I say all them, that is the actual motor running the car at the time. That's the actual battery running the car at the time. It's the actual radiator running at the time. There's ways that they can do it. You can take a car battery and hone it out. Take the top off, rip the top out, rip every one of your cells out of it. Once you got the cells out, you can put a motorcycle battery in it, hook them up to the post. A motorcycle battery will run your car. You're not going to be able to start it and stop it a whole lot, turning it on and off, but running down with the alternator running, it will wind up charging it, and it will continue to run. Now, a battery's not huge, but it's big enough to put $100,000, $200,000 worth of currency in there. It's also big enough to put 2 or 3 kilos of cocaine or methamphetamine in there. It's probably not going to be a marijuana because it's a hard compartment to build for the price of marijuana. It's probably not going to be. The dry shaft that Deputy Ross showed you with the cocaine, that was hooked to the car. That was running down the highway. So when me or Brian stop them and we start talking to them, they're trying to beat us that way too. There's nothing that looks out of the ordinary of that car. It's a dry shaft. Yeah, it's pretty easy. And do we find dope that's popping in the trunk? You bet. You know, hit the trunk, lifts up, there's duffel bags in the trunk. The whole trunk's full of weed. You get them? Yeah. But we get a lot of this. This is where the technology is. This is where that they can get it across the borders. The radiators, you'll do the same thing with the radiators. Not so much in the newer cars because we got to watch trends and stuff that we deal with too, but the radiators, the older body styles that were the all-metal radiator, you could take a radiator, go halfway up on the coils, pinch them off to where it's running half of the water through. The other half, they'll put a metal sleeve in it, and it will hold 4 kilos of cocaine perfectly. Nice. They put it back in a car, run it. Now they'll normally take the thermostat out of it, so it's running wide open all the time, so it's not going to overheat. Goes down the highway, you stop them. Can I search your car? Yep. Most officers, when you guys see search, hey, when we search the car, what do you guys look at? You look in the glove box, you look in the center console, you look underneath the seat, stuff like that. We get a whole different level on where that we look for. We're going to look into rocker panels. We're going to look into other areas. Motors the same way. They'll take the breathers where the air runs through it, and they'll build compartments in, and then that motor will sit down. That breather will sit down on top of it, and the car's running. It's what's powering it down the road. But when we look for stuff like that, there's always trace and stuff we're looking for. What we're looking for is we're looking for non-factory welds. We're looking for scratches. We're looking for hand prints. Like the dry shaft, you could tell that it wasn't a factory weld from the factory. Them are smooth, they're real nice. You're talking about people that don't weld on an everyday basis, so you'll start seeing scratches like that. You start getting into the smell. I said smell of Bondo. You know, they'll build compartments, they'll cut into rocker panels and stuff, and then they'll Bondo it over, repaint it the same color of the car to where it looks like it's not tampered with. But you can normally tell the Bondo. That's basically what that we look for and what that we do. We've been very successful at it. whether it's been on the narcotic side or the money, just on direction how it goes. Most of all of our drugs come from the west, Mexico west. Drugs go south to north, west to east. Money goes east to west and north to south. Once that we get the money in it, like Deputy Rod, we're not seizing people's money. If it's legitimate money, it's your money. We understand that. But if you're not able to answer the questions, or you're putting it, how you're packaging it, you're putting it in vacuum seal packages, you know, it's in $1,000 bundles, it's rubber band, and you put it in your gas tank and there's 6 or 7 packages floating in your gas tank, that's not normal. It's not. You know, and even travel with a large amount of money. You know, yeah, you can, and you might have somebody, hey, I'm going over here to buy this car, it cost me $12,000. You can normally, if it's the truth, it's easy. The truth is easy. When it's a lie, it's hard. And they'll always trip up on it. As far as once we get the money, there's a forfeiture plan that it goes through. Once it goes through the forfeiture, our department's able to use it for other items. Yeah, I think it's all non-budgetary items. They can buy stuff and purchase stuff, which saves us as taxpayers money. It's where that they're not having to use budgeted money for it. There's a lot of stuff that our agency has that's been paid for. But that's basically what that we do with these stops. They're just, it's not super hard. It's just doing and taking the time, and then it's just trying to find where that it's at once that you think that you got something good and where that they're holding it at.
Well, our regular narcotics officers, they have 6 months to do a long-term investigation. If we ever get a car stop, we've got 6 hours to do a 6-month investigation and make sure we're thorough and complete. This was a load of cocaine that came out of a BMW. It was behind the back seat. The next one. That's another shot of the 3,000 pounds of weed. I think this is the last slide. This was almost $600,000 cash. It was behind a third row seat underneath the seat was folded down, but it was from it was going to San Jose, California. It was from a marijuana organization. It's big money, and we all believe in banks. I use a bank. I'm sure everybody in here else does. They're federally insured, so if you go down the road and your car catches fire, you don't want to lose your life savings. Yeah, I'm not even sure how the forfeiture money is spent. So I don't get to use it. He doesn't get to use it. It helps the taxpayers, helps the citizens of the county and the state with law enforcement. It's not cheap doing this job. You can ask Sheriff Jones. We have to buy cars and budget for things every year, and those cars are expensive. You go down and buy yourself a new car, think how much it is. We have I don't know how many cars we have, Sheriff, but we have a lot. I wouldn't want to foot that bill, but that money is put back at good use. Over the years, they've put it, but we have a new range out south of town. I don't know if everybody knows about that or not, but it's a very nice facility, and the money was used for good. The money going down the highway, if it goes back to Mexico or any other criminal organizations, it's used for evil. And we've seen the evil down on the border states or the border cities, all the drug violence and people dying. So that's blood money. At least we can put that money to good use. Does anybody have any questions right now? Yes, sir.
Listening to your talk, this past weekend, I had a trailer pull into the house across kind of catty-cornered from where I live, and it was so wide that they had to push it up onto the sidewalk or the yard so that cars could pass through. And when you were talking there a while ago, I looked at that and I thought, that's kind of strange. And I thought maybe that might have some people inside that thing, but I never thought of drugs. And I bet you that booger had all kinds of drugs in that thing, in the back of that thing. Yeah.
And that, does this work? Is this working? And that's a good point. You know, I've been in law enforcement for 20 years, and one of the things with the citizens, this is strictly going to the citizens, we'll get a call of a suspicious vehicle or something, and you wind up showing up, and they'll look at you, and they'll go, well, I didn't want to call. And I'll go, why didn't you want to call? And they go, well, it might not have been nothing. And I tried telling them, I said, listen, we need all the help we can get. I don't know what's normal in your neighborhood and what's not, and I would go to 10 suspicious vehicle calls, and the 10th one wind up being a burglar that we've been having trouble with for 4 and 5 months. That's what we're looking for. If it's suspicious to you, call us. We'll determine if it's nothing or if it is something, but you guys don't realize how much that really, really helps us. It helps us do our job. It helps us look for people, and that's how these people are going to get caught if we work together. You guys telling us what to do, us coming out, using our training and experience and figuring out what they are up to do. And it might be legitimate. If it is, that's great. But call us, because a lot of people say they get so embarrassed that they don't want it to be wrong, and then they're wrong and they feel bad. And I go, don't feel bad. Call me. I mean, if you didn't call me, I'm not going to catch them. I wouldn't, if I caught a bad guy because you called a suspicious vehicle in, if you wouldn't have called that guy in, they wouldn't have got caught. So.
Do we call the police or do we call the sheriff's office?
You can call whoever you want. Most of the time, if they're in the city, they call the city. If they're in the county, they call the county. But I do know as the sheriff's department, and especially with our sheriff, it doesn't matter if you live in the city, you live in the county. If you want us, call us, we'll come. I don't care where you live. Call me.
And on your deal about the people in the trailer, we've stopped cars that had lots of illegal people in it. One car we stopped, it had an enclosed, it was like a big cargo van, and there was a cage between, there was like 12 or 13 people in the back. There was a cage between them and the drivers, and the door handles to get outside of the vehicle were disabled. They were like prisoners inside. It was like a prisoner cargo van. So we stopped them and got those people saved, and the drivers went to federal prison. But yeah, there's people, there's so much human trafficking going up and down the road. Drugs, money. It's you don't even realize it's going down the interstate there every day. I didn't until I started doing this job.
Is there any more questions? Because I know we've already went over the 20 minutes. Oh, I'm telling you, don't say that.
Don't say that.
Because one thing that makes a good criminal interdiction officer is he can talk, and you'll be here till tomorrow. So, is there any more questions?
Did anybody in here have a different idea of what we might have done before? Or, I know there's a lot of stuff that gets put in the paper and on TV that we don't always get to tell the full story about what it is that we do or who we are. But we'd be glad to answer any questions you have right now. Yes?
What are the top substances you're seizing?
Pardon?
What are the top substances you're seizing?
What are they?
Marijuana.
Oh.
Marijuana and methamphetamine. Although heroin, we never used to have a problem with heroin, we're seeing heroin, and it's coming. The problem with heroin is once it gets here, it's going to embed, and it's going to be very hard to get rid of. One of the things that we noticed over the 13 years we're doing it, the Mexicans used to run most of all the narcotics, plain simple. That's your brickweed, you're coming up. Since the states have legalized it in the black markets there, we're losing a lot of our middle guy. Where we used to get 2,000 pounds of marijuana, 300 pounds, 500-pound loads because it's brickweed, we're not getting that. We're getting 5 to 20 pounds of the fluff weed. 1, is 10 times higher. 2, they skipped out the middleman. You're having kids now in college, just any college you have, 3 or 4 buddies get together, they put in $1,500 a piece. You know, that's about $5-6 grand. They'll run out to Colorado, they'll drive themselves out there, they'll meet somebody, they'll pick it up and come back. So we're kind of missing it. And I also believe the meth is so bad because meth is extremely cheap right now. And I think the reason for that is that the states that's legalized marijuana took a lot of the money out of Mexico for their weed, so they're trying to flood the market with the methamphetamine. But heroin's here, and we're starting to see a few more cases with it. It's here, and the problem is it's probably going to be here to stay, and it's probably the worst thing we're going to have to
The
deal
problem
with.
with the heroin now is the synthetic heroin that's coming out, the fentanyl is laced with fentanyl. Just a small amount of that stuff will kill you. Like you keep hearing on the East Coast of all these opioid overdoses that are killing people. We've been seeing more and more small amounts of heroin come in, but once the fentanyl, they're lacing the heroin with the fentanyl to make it go further and get a better high. We're gonna, if that keeps coming on a trend like it is across the country, we're gonna start seeing some fentanyl heroin deaths here in Shawnee County. Yes, sir.
Is there any behavior? What can we expect with these people that are if they're more of them getting drugs? What kind of behavior are we going to be seeing on the street, or is that something that we're not going to really have to worry about? Do they behave, or are they breaking into houses, or are they doing anything like that?
You're going to have, and like I said, when Deputy Ross said that it seems like most of our crime are drug related, most of it is. The reason that the person's breaking into your car in your driveway is to go buy their weed or to go buy their meth. There's a money driven. Not all, I mean, that's not a 100%, but it's very high. It's normally pretty high up. As far as somebody that's strung out on dope and stuff like that, if they're acting strange, there's probably a reason for it. And then that'd be a reason to wind up calling us. Like, you know, a lot of people, since the states have legalized it, Kansas hasn't yet, but, you know, they try to decriminalize marijuana. Marijuana still isn't the greatest thing around. It's not. I mean, I wouldn't look at it like, oh, crap, we wind up legalizing marijuana, we're saved. That's not the issue. Colorado's having a ton of problems. And the people that we're dealing with people that's got large quantities coming. They're not even in compliance with the state they're at. I know the compliance of Colorado. You can have 1 ounce of marijuana on you at a time. 1 ounce. That's 28 grams. That's about that much. I mean, we're getting 5, 6, 20 pounds of this. They can't smoke it in the public. They can't drive and do it. They can't take it across state lines. There's commercials and stuff they give it. You have to be 21 to possess it. So one of the best things I have around here is the schools, because I got a canine. We go sniff the schools, and that's the first thing a kid will throw at me. We should legalize it. It's legalized everywhere. Well, yeah, it might be legalized in Colorado, but you would still not be able to have it. You're only 18 years old, or you're only 16 years old. You're not even in compliance if you lived in Colorado. And the people that we're dealing with, they're not in compliance with Colorado. They're just trying to make money. Sure. She opened the door.
I know. I don't have any questions there, but I guess what I want to say is, of what these two gentlemen do, really is a cooperation with other law enforcement officers. I mean, they do a lot for the agency, but they work in conjunction with our partners in the city and in federal. I'll say it because they're not going to. Yesterday, we had our staff meeting, and we had officials from the Drug Enforcement Administration come in, and these two gentlemen were recognized by the DEA for what they do and the drugs and the money that they've taken off the streets and highways right here. And we're not just talking about Kansas, we're talking about a region where these two gentlemen were recognized. And because of what they do and their expertise, they also go out and teach other law enforcement officers, not just in Kansas, but across the United States. So these two are recognized across the United States for what you do. So this is the type of professionalism that we see in our law enforcement in Kansas. These individuals that are here are very professional. You can see the knowledge that they have to be able to do these type of things. So I think we're very fortunate to have law enforcement like this in our community. So I just want to give them a hand.
We done?
Any more questions? All right. I'd say anybody who criticizes you guys, tell them you don't make the rules, you just enforce them, and you do a wonderful job at that. Give these guys a nice round of applause. All right, well, thank you so much for coming out to the Safe Streets meeting today. Please be sure to fill out the surveys on your table so we know how to get the most out of these meetings. We'll see you back here next month to make Topeka and Shawnee County the safest capital community. Thanks again for coming out.